Hello and welcome to the data visualization series. In this video, we'll learn how to code the different types of bar graphs, namely simple bar graph, horizontal bar graph, grouped bar graph, and stacked, that is compound bar graph. If you haven't already watched our previous video on bar graphs, please do check it out first to understand the theory behind it. So let us begin with the first type of bar graph, that is simple bar graph. We'll first be importing the library that is matplotlib. This is the library required to plot any kinds of graphs in Python. After this, we will move on to the actual code for the simple bar graph. So suppose I want to plot a bar graph for the different languages spoken by students in a class. So to plot this bar graph, I will be creating two lists. First one is languages. So for example, let's take English, Hindi, Marathi, Tamil, and Telugu. The second list will be of the number of students. So let us take 20 students for English, 15 for Hindi, 18 for Marathi, 7 for Tamil, and 10 for Telugu. Now we want to plot a bar graph with languages on our x-axis and the list of number of students on our y-axis. So for this, we'll be using the function plt.bar and pass our two lists, that is languages and students, as the arguments, and we'll use the plt.show function to plot the bar graph. So here we have our bar graph with the languages, list of languages on the x-axis and the number of students on the y-axis. Suppose if we want to label our x and y axis, we'll add the function plt.xlabel to name our x-axis. We'll name it as languages, and similarly to label the y-axis, we'll be using the function plt.ylabel. We can also add a title to the bar graph using plt.title. And here we go. We have the title, the X label, and the Y label. So this is all about the simple bar graph. Now let us move on to the second type, that is horizontal bar graph. So the code for horizontal bar graph is almost the same as that of the simple bar graph, except for a minor change. So I will first copy the code for simple bar graph down here for the horizontal bar graph. And the only change that we need to make is that instead of plt.bar function, we'll be using plt.barh function, that is horizontal bar graph. And here we go. We can see that the bar graph has been plotted in a horizontal manner. One prominent change that we can see here in case of horizontal bar graph is that our x and y axis have been interchanged. So the list of languages is now on the y-axis and the number of students is now on the x-axis. We will remove the x and y labels as they don't match this bar graph. So here we are, or we could interchange the label. Any of the two will work. So now let us move on to the third type of bar graph, that is a grouped bar graph. We'll be importing the library NumPy for this. And here I will be fixing the bar width as 0.25 for each of the bars that we'll be plotting. So I want to plot a grouped bar graph for the maximum and the minimum temperature for the first 5 months of a year. So for that I will be creating two lists. The first will be maximum temperature. So for example, let's take 25, 27, 29, 20 and 22. And next list will be for the minimum temperatures. So that will be 20, 23, 21, 15 and 17. So we have our list. The next important thing that we need to do is we want to fix the position of both these bars, that is the bar that will be representing the maximum temperature as well as the bar that will be representing the minimum temperature on the x-axis. So as this is a grouped bar graph, I want the bars which represent the maximum and minimum temperature for each month to be plotted together. For that, we'll be declaring our first variable as R1 for the maximum temperature, and we'll fix its position on the x-axis. For all the elements that lie in the maximum list. Now we want the bars for minimum temperature to be plotted right next to the maximum temperature for each month. So we will declare our next variable R2 for the minimum temperature, and its position will be x plus the bar width of the first bar for x in R1. So there we have our x positions for both these bars fixed. Now we will proceed to plot these two bar graphs. So we'll first use the plt.bar function for the maximum temperature. The parameters passed will be R1, max. We also need to specify the width, which is equal to bar width that we have already fixed. Similarly, we'll plot the graph for minimum temperature. So the parameters will be R2, minimum, and the width will be equal to the bar width. We can also add labels to our bars. So we'll label this as maximum temperature and this as minimum temperature, and we will plot these two bar graphs using plt.show. So here we have the result. We can also add the function plt.legend, which will give this box in one of the corners of our bar graph, which gives us the index for the maximum temperature and minimum temperature. So this is all about grouped bar graph. So now we have come to our fourth and the last category of bar graph, which is stacked bar graph. And as the name suggests, the bars for two different categories will be plotted one on top of the other. So let us begin with the code. We will first fix the bar width like we did for the grouped bar graph. will fix it as 0.5. And again I will be creating two lists. First is maximum, and the second one will be minimum. I will be declaring a variable R. This will be common for both the maximum temperature and minimum temperature. And I will create a list of the months. So our lists are ready. Now what we have to do is we have to add the length of the two bars, that is the bars that will represent the maximum temperature and minimum temperature, because we want the two bars plotted one on top of each other. So for that I will say bar equals np.add. We want to add the individual elements of the two lists that we have created, that is maximum and minimum. So in np.add I will pass the arguments as maximum, comma minimum to list. And now I will plot the bar graph. So I will use the function plt.bar r comma maximum. We want the width of the bars to be equal to the bar width, which we first have fixed, and we will label this as max temperature. Now similarly we will plot the bars for the minimum temperature. That will be r comma minimum. Width would again be equal to bar width. Here we have to add an extra argument, that is bottom equals maximum, as the bars for the maximum temperature will be below the bars of minimum temperature. So we have added this extra argument for stacked bar graph, and again the label would be minimum temperature. So plt.show will plot the function, and here we have a stacked bar graph for the maximum and minimum temperature. I will again add here the function plt.legend, which will give us an index, and we can see that below we have the bars for the maximum temperature, and on top of them stacked are the bars for the minimum temperature. So in this way you can plot different types of bar graphs using the library matplotlib in Python. Thank you for watching the video.